Welcome, horror lovers. We bet you've heard many scary legends about abandoned buildings inhabited by ghosts of the past. Many of these end up being demolished, while others, like the building today's protagonist was in, are renovated and open once more their terrifying doors. A lot of time had passed and Rose still couldn't find a job as a nurse. It was pretty difficult due to her lack of education and experience. And every year, things would get more and more complicated. She was about 40 years old and was a careful and competent professional, but always had in front of her either young women with scholarships looking to start their training, or veterans who were way more skilled than her. She started to give up and stay at home, feeling depressed. Her husband Jack also felt terrible due to her situation. Fortunately, he had a stable job in IT, and even though they could both live with his income, he knew this situation was torture for her. Rose could end up developing a disorder, or even worse, wandering around like a soul in torment. Being a nurse, and especially taking care of others, had been her dream since she was young. One day, Jack had a bit of a strange idea, which he had to try now as a last resort. He heard that the old mental home at the city outskirts had been renovated. A while ago, they used to receive the most severe cases of schizophrenia and psychosis, but had to close it down due to lack of resources. However, they had renovated it into a modern hospital with the latest technology ready to open again. He went to the management office with Rose to make them an extraordinary proposal. She would work there for free for the first 3 months, and if she managed to prove her value as a nurse, they would hire her full-time. And if she didn't, she would simply leave without saying a word. Rose was very surprised, but thought the idea wasn't bad at all. Quite the contrary. She preferred to help others instead of staying at home doing nothing, even if she wasn't paid for now. And thus, that's how she could finally get a job as a nurse, and in one of the most prestigious medical centers of the region. The entire complex had 5 floors, but only 4 were currently functioning. The 3rd floor was still under construction and still conserved some remains of its sinister past. When Rose was on call, she would sometimes walk around there, feeling strangely attracted to the rooms in ruins, with cushioned walls and beds with straps. Weeks passed by and she started to feel very hopeful, and soon enough, the management team told her how satisfied they were with her work, as well as the patients. They were so happy with her that they finally decided to hire her permanently and would even pay her for the month she had already worked in there, and she deserved it. The renovations on the 3rd floor were almost complete. It would start being used soon and the hospital needed more stuff. That was when, in the middle of a night when she was on call, she heard how she was called over the loudspeakers. She had to clean a mess on one of the rooms in the 3rd floor. That was weird, since that wasn't exactly part of her job and the 3rd floor wasn't in use yet. She couldn't recognize that voice either. It sounded so gruff and deep that she was sure she hadn't heard it before. However, willing to help, she obeyed the voice. When she arrived, it seemed that nobody was on the floor and all the hallways were dark, even though she thought she heard murmurs on the other side. In the dark, she tried to find the light switches, but when she tried to turn them on, there was no electricity. It was also very cold since all the windows were broken. Many times she asked out loud if someone was there, but nobody responded, so she decided to return to her usual position. On her way back, she went to the management office to ask why she was instructed to go there. But the response they gave her left her very perplexed. They told her that nobody had called her. In fact, nobody even heard the loudspeakers. They all seemed to be as puzzled as she was, but then Rose thought that maybe they were just playing a prank on her for being near and tried to just forget about it. It could also be that she heard wrong or that her imagination was playing tricks on her. It was 3 in the morning and she was very tired. Fortunately, she was assigned a new assistant, Jenny, a young woman excited to learn by her side and who soon became her friend. Rose felt safer with Jenny, although Jenny had kind of an eccentric hobby. She liked to talk about urban legends and mysterious cases. Thanks to Jenny, Rose learned the terrifying truth about the old building they were now working in. The former mental home had been closed down due to horrible abuses by the staff on the patients. Some cases were so extreme that the staff would confine the patients for days and would even leave them immobilized in their beds, forgetting about them afterwards. They would even beat the ones who were more hysterical to calm them down, or would leave them without food for days. It was a pretty grim picture. The mental home was crammed with patients who would wander the hallways with no supervision, while the staff became overwhelmed and lost their humanity. It was a nightmare, one that would fortunately never happen again because the new center now had enough resources, as well as excellent workers such as Rose. And there was Jenny too, who turned out to be the perfect helper. However, one fateful night while Rose and Jenny were having a break together, that sinister voice sounded again through the loudspeakers. It called Rose again, this time to room 33 in the 3rd floor, while sending her partner Jenny to a different place. That was strange because even though the renovation of the floor was finished, it was still unoccupied. Intrigued, Jenny decided to go with Rose. However, when they were halfway there, as if the voice was observing them, it once again ordered Jenny to go somewhere else. And so, Rose had to keep going to room 33, alone. This time around, the hallways were illuminated with a dim light, but there was still nobody inside. She arrived at room 33 and slowly opened the door, as if she didn't want to wake up whoever was inside. And in fact, there was actually a patient there, lying on the bed. However, there were no machines around him and no relative or friend staying with him. Worried about the patient, Rose asked for permission to come in and turned on the light. However, what she saw left her frozen in shock. The walls had a new cushioning as if it had been renovated, but that made no sense since they no longer took care of mental patients in that medical center. There were also a lot of scratches on the cushions as well as bits of blood. She started to get scared, but even then she approached the patient to see if he needed her help. The texture of his skin was a bit strange with a yellowish tone. His eyes were closed, so she tried to call him softly. Since he wasn't responding, she walked towards him, and she suddenly started to experience a strange sensation. She tried to come closer, but with each step, she noticed the patient was getting farther and farther away from her, to the point that she started to get exasperated. She felt panic and wanted to run towards the door. However, when she turned around, she noticed she had never left her initial position. She looked at the patient once again and felt deep pity for him due to his terrible state. And thus, she mustered all the courage she could and with determination tried to reach once again the patient's bed to see what was going on. And this time around, she actually managed to reach it. However, when she looked at the patient, what she saw petrified her in horror. She could barely contain a scream. When she touched the hand of the patient, she noticed that it was completely cold, with no life. She didn't need to take his pulse to know he was dead. And even then, suddenly, the patient reacted and opened its eyes. Rose didn't know if he was looking at her since its eyes were completely black as midnight. However, she could see herself reflected in those eyes. Shocked beyond belief, Rose let go of the hand of that patient and wanted to run back to the door. But it slammed shut on its own, confining her there. Terrorized, she slowly turned around to the bed once more. Now the bed was empty and the bed sheets were scrambled as if the patient had gotten up hastily. She tried to search for him around her, but the darkness of the room barely allowed her to distinguish the corners. She then heard a hoarse and deep whisper coming from a voice she immediately recognized. "You're just like the others. You're going to abandon me here. But now, you will never get out." Meanwhile, going back to her post, Jenny heard a scream coming from the 3rd floor. Fearing for Rose, she rushed to room 33, but when she arrived, she turned on the lights and noticed nothing strange. The walls were smooth, recently painted with an immaculate color, and the modern beds were ready to be used. She searched the entire floor for Rose but couldn't find her, and thus Rose was never seen again. That fateful night, she had disappeared forever. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!